Kyle Lowry, their championship guard, he's the one that called for this team meeting after the game. It included players, included coaches. But the most notable thing, Malika, sources tell me Tyrese Maxey challenged Joel Embiid, the face of that franchise, the former league MVP, about his tardiness and about being on time for team activity.
This was not supposed to happen. Guys, this was not supposed to happen at all, because when the Philadelphia 76ers decided to sign Paul George in the offseason, it looks like a home run move. A team with an MVP level player, a young star level guard, was adding another all-star who fit like a glove with his shooting ability, his defense, and his overall scoring. Well, 13 games into the season, and the Philadelphia 76ers aren't just out of the playoffs, they are 2-11. They aren't competing with the Boston Celtics and Cleveland Cavaliers like they were supposed to. They are in a dogfight with the Washington Wizards and the Toronto Raptors, and the only two games they have won this entire season both came in overtime. And now 13 games into the season, we are getting reports that you have Tyrese Maxey, the nicest guy in the NBA, calling out their franchise player for being late to quote-unquote everything. This wasn't just him telling Joel that he could lift his standards or set an example for the other players on the team. No, he was telling Joel Embiid that he actually needs to take his job seriously. Meanwhile, you have Paul George, who continues to make more of an impact in the podcasting studio than on the floor, complaining about being double teamed in one of his first games back from injury. I am being so serious.
I saw JJ after the game. We talked and laughed a little bit. They were trapping and they were, sending doubles and playing up in the pick and rolls. And I'm like, JJ, I'm on minute restriction. Let me hoop. Let me play.
And you know what makes all of this so ridiculous, particularly from Joel Embiid's perspective, is just a few months ago, when he was in his usual position of watching the NBA Finals instead of competing, he went on ESPN and said this.
So hopefully, this offseason we find a way to get better and, add some pieces
And Daryl Morey and the 76ers made this happen. Now, I'm not going to blame Embiid for his injuries or even missing games, but you have to question if those things are his fault when apparently he can't even be bothered to turn up to training on time. So why should we believe he is doing enough work behind the scenes to stay healthy? But even when you ignore that, the whole idea of load managing both PG and Embiid was that when they played, they would be good. If anything, the Sixers have looked worse with those guys in the lineup, which didn't seem possible considering how bad they were without, but so far in 3 games, Embiid is averaging 15 points a game on 32% from the field and 15% from 3, whilst playing non-existent defense and turning the ball over too much. And then there's Paul George, whose numbers look like prime Michael Jordan in comparison, with averages of 16, 5 and 5 on 39-28 splits. Oh, how much are these guys getting paid again? Well, that's right, about $100 million between them. Meanwhile, the only player who was playing with both effort and skill was just drafted and was the guy who got the most criticism of any Sixers player over the offseason because he likes to dance and sing in his free time. Well, who cares, because when he is actually on the court, he gives 100% effort every single time. And we can talk about Embiid or PG going through injuries, and I'm not here to say those guys are washed. Let me make this clear. I'm not an idiot. Joel Embiid is still a superstar, and Paul George will still be a good player in some capacity. I'm not quite sure anymore, but that doesn't excuse what they're doing right now and what they just did against the Miami Heat. With 8 minutes left in the quarter, Kelly Oubre hit this layup to put the 76ers ahead by 18 points. Now, we all watch the NBA, and we know an 18-point lead may as well be a 3-point lead, but there's a difference between losing a lead and doing whatever the 76ers just did against Miami, because they proceeded to let the Heat cut back at the lead in the first half, getting it to 3 points by halftime. Okay, that's not great, but it happens. However, when you finish a half like that, when you have a chance to rest and then go again, you would expect they enter the second half with some kind of intensity, right? Right? Oh, you would have been very wrong, with the Heat outscoring the 76ers by 19 points in the third quarter, more than doubling their tally, and those two guys who they've paid max contracts for, the two guys who are supposed to be one of the best duos in the league, had a grand total of 1 made field goal in that quarter. And you know what else was supposed to be the deal with Joel Embiid and PG? They were supposed to be a two-way duo, which means playing both well on the offensive and defensive side of the floor. Just in case Paul George and Joel Embiid are confused by that, look at Embiid on this play. Hero brings the ball up the floor, Bam sets the screen, Robinson comes through with the brush screen, and with Caleb Martin closing out to Robinson, Embiid should be closing out to the next shooter in Jimmy Butler. Well, would you guys call that a closeout? That looks like a match fixing. There's no way he had to process that play for 2 seconds and then he just wandered out and threw up a hand like it was nothing. I know Jimmy Butler isn't exactly a shooter, but just the overall intensity on that entire play sums up Joel Embiid's season so far. And the problem for Embiid is we know how great he is. I've talked about his playoff struggles, and I think that is fair to criticize him for, but this is one of the greatest regular season players ever, and from a talent perspective, one of the greatest players full stop, who can dominate on both ends of the floor. So it's pretty obvious when he's either injured, which could be true, or he's not trying. And I would give him the benefit of the doubt, but when Tyrese Maxey, who is the nicest guy in the league, is calling you lazy, why should we assume it's anything but that? Now, the only reason I still think this team can turn it around is because you have two guys in Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey who are not only playing at an all-star level, well, McCain more than Maxey. Yes, Jared McCain has been that good, but these are the kind of players that can provide the entire team with energy, not just from their personalities, but the way they play. We saw it last year in the playoffs with Maxey lifting up Embiid during his struggles, before Embiid then had the best playoff game of his career. Now, it is hilarious that the Sixers season might hinge on a 24 and 20-year-old, despite having two of the most accomplished players in the league on their roster, but tell me I'm lying. And the good thing for Philly is the Eastern Conference sucks. Despite being 2-11, they are 3 games out of the play-in. As opposed to if they were in the West, they would be 6 games out of the play-in already. They could end up winning 35 games and still finish as an 8th or 9th seed in this conference. But in this conference, they should be winning 55 games and finishing as a minimum 3rd or 4th seed. And they still have the talent to do this, because for anyone who thought this team was talented already, they added someone who was giving you 20 points a night on 40% from 3 as a rookie. If you had have told people Jared McCain was going to be this good before the season started, most of us would have assumed it would be Philly who were 15-0 and not Cleveland. But Cleveland star players actually play basketball instead of talking about it. Yes, I'm talking to you, Paul George, because for the last 3 seasons you have told everyone how they woke the bully. Well, last time I checked, bullies don't get on podcasts and complain about being double teamed in an NBA game. This wasn't a practice like when Devin Booker got clowned for complaining, a real NBA game. And I know he was half joking, but seriously? Anyways, if you want to see something, anything positive about the 76ers, check out this video I made about Jared McCain. He's actually really good. Consider subscribing if you want to see more content like this. Dropping a like on the video would be cool. Either way, have a great day. Bye.